Ready to battle here. We're ready for the finals here from Grand Prix Cincinnati. Hello and welcome to the finals of Grand Prix Cincinnati. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and we are underway. Brad Nelson coming in 4th seed with Esper Control. He's playing against Kyle Boggemes, who was 7th, also with Esper Control. So we're going to be looking at a control mirror here in the finals, Randy. And we were just talking about land drops, how important that is in all stages of this game.
Yeah, and their main decks are super close. They're literally off by 1 spell.
Okay.
Brad has 2 Last Breaths, 1 Syncopate. Kyle has it the other way around. The sideboards, we'll get to that, are very different. Kyle has a whole bunch of creatures, including Nightveil Specters, that could be very good in this matchup.
All right, here's a Thoughtseize to start things off for Kyle Boggemes, and that we're going to get an early look at Brad Nelson's hand. And it's a pretty good one here. He's got a Last Breath.
It's not good. You're looking at the spells. This
you're right.
terrible.
He has not enough lands. Yeah, you're totally right, Randy.
I mean, it looks good.
Yeah, it does.
What if Detention Sphere doesn't tap for mana?
That's true. So Last Breath, double Detention Sphere, Dissolve. He's also got a Sphinx's Revelation and only 1 more land. So, yeah, you're totally correct that even though he has powerful spells in his hand, that's actually not what he wants at this stage of the game.
Right. Yeah, the only actually good card in his hand has just been stripped away, the Dissolve. Last Breath does nothing in this matchup except kill a Mutavault.
Which isn't bad until your opponent is absolutely certain that you have it in your hand, in which case they just never expose
Supreme
it.
Verdict does even less.
All right, there's that land for Brad Nelson.
I mean, it looks like, Brad, if he had, maybe he had all 3 of these lands in the draw. I don't know if he would mulligan 2 land. If his opener was 2 lands, one of which is a scry land, maybe that's better than going down to 6 cards.
Okay.
I don't know.
Can he keep hitting his lands? This is a key one. He does. He draws an island off the top and keeps things rolling.
Kyle's going to cycle Azorius Charm.
Yeah, and Kyle, though, is actively moving through. He just played a scry land into an Azorius Charm, so he's making sure that he's going to keep hitting these land drops where Brad has more reactive spells in his hand. Yeah, it looks like he found a target for one of those Detention Spheres potentially here. So Jace is going to minus and immediately reveal an Elspeth, which is going to go into Kyle's hand, ship the other 2 cards to the bottom of his library, pass the turn back. Brad Nelson draws his card for the turn. Is it a land?
I think it was.
Okay. We won't know quite yet. It is. It is not a scry land, unfortunately, but still good enough. Keep the lands flowing here. He has not missed a land drop yet.
Yeah. His deck has left him so far in this top 8. Why should it stop now? Kyle's starting to get dangerous to tap out here. I mean, I guess it would be hard for Brad to both have top decked more land and have top decked his Aetherling.
Sure.
But I mean, that's the fear. Like, you can top out early in this matchup, but once your opponent has the ability to drop an Aetherling, really you have to have 7 mana, though. The Aetherling, tap out on turn 6.
Right.
Actually, tapping out for Aetherling isn't good because every removal spell in the deck can then deal with it.
Yeah, it's more of an Elspeth question in 6, yeah.
It's when they have 7 that you have to live in actual fear.
Right.
I like the way Kyle's played this, running out the Jaces, especially since he took the 1 Dissolve out of Brad's hand. He's able to keep going through his deck.
Brad just drew an Elspeth, I think. Yes, he did.
And a 6th land.
There it is. So the land's there, and we have an Elspeth. So
yeah, this is
a good start, though, with a Jace Architect of Thought on the other side. Elspeth tokens don't do a whole lot for a while, but it's going to
Elspeth going ultimate is a very real threat.
Absolutely. Just not yet. Boggemes has plenty of time to figure out how he wants to handle this Elspeth.
Now, some Esper lists have enough black mana to support Hero's Downfall, but not these guys.
Okay.
They cannot remove an Elspeth with anything other than Detention Sphere.
Speaking of Elspeth, looks like we have an Elspeth fight here. Now, didn't Brad have a second Detention Sphere in his hand, though, from that early Thoughtseize?
Yes, he did.
So that's something we can...
God, did he just draw Dissolve, too? Thought I saw a flash of a Dissolve.
Well, not if he taps his mana this way.
Fair. Why would he tap his mana that way? Yeah. You got to leave up 2 blue.
Brad
Wow,
Nelson.
yeah, Kyle cast that Thoughtseize. Brad's hand looked terrible.
Yeah.
And it was. It's not like the cards he was holding turned out to be good. It's just the top of his deck has delivered
Land,
three
land,
lands
land,
and an Elspeth.
Yes.
That was the next 4 draw phases.
And here's a Sphinx's Revelation in the main phase for Brad Nelson, indicating that he was likely going to miss a land drop here.
Red for 3 while Kyle's tapped out.
That's right. I mean, the board's pretty safe right now.
Well, I mean, Kyle can go land Aetherling.
Wow, Brad did miss his land drop here, though,
Even after the rev?
Yeah. So he's got
unlucky.
all spells in hand?
Yeah. Kyle really wants to go land Aetherling right here. Doesn't look like he's going to get to.
He's not. He
declined the rev?
He did.
He took what? What was it, 2 land, or was it a land?
No,
and
it was land, I think, dissolve. Is that what that was?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he picked it up pretty quickly. I couldn't see. He's got plenty of cards in hand to work with here. Going to trade some tokens. Replay his tokens. Oh,
6?
Is this an Aetherling?
Is it?
Yes, it is an
Yes.
Aetherling. He's got that blue mana sitting there too.
Yep. You
and
really
Brad
need 7.
Nelson's got some issues here. He's got to figure out how the heck he's going to deal with this Aetherling.
You can't.
Not with that much mana.
I mean, I said if somebody resolves
Yeah.
an Aetherling, their victory percentage goes up well over 90%. Well, that's what just happened.
Even with Elspeth on 6,
I mean,
Aetherling just is a 3-turn clock here. I mean, you said that the way to beat it is to race it. Right now, is
can he race with
Elspeth ultimate?
Ultimate?
I don't know.
I mean, Kyle also has Elspeth ultimate. Isn't Kyle ahead in the Elspeth race?
No, Brad will
Brad's
be.
ahead of turn?
Yeah, Brad still hasn't activated it. It's going to go to 7 here.
Did he Detention Sphere the Aetherling?
He Detention Sphered and Doombladed. So he had 2 answers.
Wow.
Wow. That's one of the only ways to do it.
Wow. He just killed an Aetherling.
Yep.
There's what, 2 instant speed cards in Brad's deck that can target an Aetherling after he activates that. There's the 2 Doomblades.
Yes.
And he had one of them.
He had
so
one
leads
of
with the D-Sphere. Try to flip Aetherling. Interesting.
So soldiers trade for each other. And Elspeth replenishes the board again. But again, the key here is that Brad's Elspeth is now on 7.
Right. Although I think you go to 8 here, right? You kind of
It's definitely a
don't
possibility.
want to lose. It's only got 3 tokens. My 90% must be off. We've seen the Resolved Aetherling lose twice in this top 8 now. Makes me think I'm overestimating it a little bit. I mean, it was kind of crazy things, but it's been Brad Nelson both times. Brad Nelson and his Doomblades both times.
Yeah. I mean, he had
Once he
one
managed
turn
to-
window to have both of those cards.
Right.
He could also have Supreme Verdict and Doomblade, but
All right, Kyle decides to clear the board with a Supreme Verdict,
They're just-
living in fear of the Elspeth Ultimate.
yeah, they're just tossing those soldier tokens back and forth. Scryland for Nelson, leaves it on top.
Now what?
That's the question. I mean, Nelson's got a bunch of cards in his hand.
So if he pluses his Elspeth, he risks Kyle going Ultimate with his,
And then
attacking him with 9 power in the air, so
Right.
Elspeth will die
Elspeth dies, and then he's left with 3
with 3 darks.
1/1s.
He could Ultimate his Elspeth and get an emblem, which he'll keep for the rest of the game, but there'll be 0 creatures.
Right.
Kyle can still Ultimate his own Elspeth and attack Brad for 9 in the air. Kind of a tricky spot. I mean, he clearly had to use that detention sphere on the Etherling.
Mm-hmm. But it did mean it's not in his hand anymore. Oh,
of course, there's another one.
There's got another one. But this is awkward, right? I mean, if he hits Elspeth, it hits his Elspeth too. So the question, ideally he'd like to ultimate it and then play this. But if this doesn't resolve, he needs to have some type of backup plan here.
Yeah, this is awkward.
This is tricky stuff.
What did he hit? Oh, it got countered? I can't tell what just happened.
I don't know what got Doombladed.
He got the tokens.
He hit the tokens. Okay.
He hit the tokens.
And then Kyle tried to hit the token that was targeted.
And he countered the
And then
Doomblade.
he countered the Doomblade.
Yep.
Okay.
Tight little play there.
Yeah, that happened very quickly.
Yeah, I was thinking if Brad hits the tokens, now Kyle is in exactly the same spot.
Right.
It's like Brad just reclaimed initiative here.
That's right.
Now he's the one who's threatening to go ultimate and kill Kyle's Elspeth. Kyle's the one who has to either take an emblem and walk away from the fight, or make 3 darks and lose his Elspeth.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, Kyle can plus his Jace and save his Elspeth, but it doesn't really accomplish what he wants.
It still takes 6.
Yeah.
I mean, he can keep Elspeth for a turn that way, but
right. Doesn't really get him where he wants to go. So Kyle's deep in the tank here. We're in game 1 of the finals. Make sure you get a glass of water.
These guys are playing pretty fast, though.
They are.
Like, neither one of them's really going deep into the tank.
No.
Especially, like, they both knew exactly what was up at that little Elspeth fight there.
They did.
As soon as Brad pointed D-Sphere at a token, Kyle immediately tried to fizzle the D-Sphere effect by
he did.
Doomblading his own guy. Didn't hesitate.
Land.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jace takes one
for
the team
hoping
here.
for something that'll get him out of this tricky spot. Didn't find anything to get himself out of this spot, but now what, Kyle? Settle for an emblem on a naked board? The nice thing, I mean, Brad's actually in an even better spot than Kyle was last turn, because if he makes an Elspeth emblem, he keeps his Elspeth around. He's up to 8 loyalty, so he can make the emblem and then keep spitting out tokens.
Yeah, that's the plan here.
New Elspeth.
All right.
That works. And he's got the Elspeth emblem from the previous Elspeth, so those are 3/3 flyers.
They are.
Kyle managed to activate both Elspeth abilities and get this board back to essentially parity. Yeah, Brad gets an emblem of his own, and now both players are on trip 3/3 flyers.
And Brad's going to attack all 3 of his 3/3s
at the new Elspeth.
At the new Elspeth.
This essentially forces Kyle to block or lose his Elspeth.
Right, but that's not too bad for Kyle, right?
Kyle can block, keep 1 alive to attack Elspeth with. Wouldn't you be willing to lose 3 loyalty off of Elspeth in order to crack back?
You'd think so, as the second emblem isn't really.
No, and he could kill Brad's. Brad's only has 1 loyalty.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would have let 1 hit to keep an attacker.
He decided to trade all of them off here.
Yeah, it surprises me a little bit. It seems like having 1 to attack with, given that Brad's already activated his Elspeth. Can't make more tokens. He already made the emblem.
And Brad just has to pass a turn back. Yep, there's no stray Mutavaults floating around down there for Kyle, right? That's not a thing.
Oh, that would explain it if there is, but
there's not.
Both players have 2 Mutavaults in their list.
Yeah, here's Jace, Architect of Thought for Kyle Boggemes. That's going to get met with a dissolve, though. It looks like Brad decided to keep that one on top. And here we go. Kyle Boggemes gets to immediately reload. 9 power flying.
The emblem is what? All your creatures get +2/+2?
And flying.
So the second emblem actually does do something? It becomes 5/5s versus 3/3s?
I suppose so. I don't think I've ever gotten 2 emblems.
I have never seen 2 emblems on the same side of the board. I'm not sure I've seen an emblem on each side of the board before.
Yeah, that's not normal.
Oh, that
either.
Doomblade is not bad. This allows Kyle to attack Elspeth.
So that was end step Doomblade, one of the tokens, so that he can get ahead by killing Elspeth potentially here.
That's exactly what that was.
Everybody there, so just Brad Nelson have one of his, what, 2 Azorius Charms or the one remaining Doomblade or something? This has been an interesting game. These aren't the fights that we normally see fought.
No, I have never seen Elspeth square off an Emblem of Peace continuing to spit out tokens before. It's a cool game. Part of me is just happy Brad managed to kill that Aetherling, so we got to see this.
Yeah.
Now,
here's Sphinx's Revelation.
Now we get to the more familiar Esper on Esper
That's
fights.
Right.
Brad says, I have a large Sphinx's Revelation.
He's testing the waters here.
Is he tapping out for it? I mean, he hasn't actually tapped any mana. He probably just said Rev for 5, tapped out for it, I'm guessing. Kyle should fight this if he can, right? He's ahead on board. If he's got a counter, he's going to respond with a Rev of his own. Tricky.
And he's going to leave up 3 mana in case he finds
he's hoping to find a Dissolve or a Syncopate, either one.
So this is also a Rev for 5.
Yes. Kyle has 2 Syncopates in his list, which is 1 more than Brad has.
But he's made sure to leave 3 mana up so that he can find
cast Dissolve.
Any counter here, He finds it.
Wow.
Jeez.
That should do it, right?
Getting that far ahead in land certainly is advantageous.
Yeah, Brad scoops him up.
And that's going to do it, Kyle Boggemes. He's going to pick up game 1 here.
Despite getting his Aetherling killed.
That's right.
See, I was right that I had him over 90%.
You were. Well, I mean, it is worth noting there, right, that Brad did have to burn 2 spells and basically his entire turn to do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and it kind of let Kyle get slightly ahead in the Elspeth fight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Elspeth fight went super long and super interesting, but at the end of the day, Kyle did win the Elspeth fight.
Right. He did.
Cool. Now, we go to the sideboards.
Now the fun begins, Randy. What is going to happen here?
The fun continues.
You're right. I didn't mean that wasn't fun. I mean, now it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, what is going to happen with these sideboards?
Right.
Here?
Kyle's sideboard includes 4 Night Veil Specters, 2 Blood Barons, and 2 Archangels.
Okay.
Now, part of the reason you put creatures in the sideboard of an Esper deck is you figure, your opponent is going to take all their creature removal out because, of course, they're playing against your essentially creatureless control deck, and you can get them. You can surprise them with these awesome creatures after sideboarding. Well, Brad has seen the list.
Right.
Brad knows that Kyle has this option, and so Brad's not going to be surprised. But, of course, Kyle knows that Brad knows, so now maybe Kyle doesn't bring in as many creatures. And, they've got to guess. Like, if Brad guesses correctly, I feel like he can build a good deck. Although, I'll say this. I can't imagine Kyle leaving Night Veil Spectre in his sideboard.
Okay.
Night Veil Spectre is so insanely, awesomely ridiculous in this matchup that they're coming in.
Okay.
Like, I'm not sure it's a complete guess. Like, I don't know about the Blood Barons or the Archangels. I would be shocked if Kyle left Night Veil Spectres in his sideboard. They're so good here.
They're really well positioned as well because Brad, he can hedge a bit and leave Doomblades in because
he's like... You can't Doombblade them. Well, no, Doomblade's terrible,
This was my point, but you stopped me before I made it. So what I was saying is he can normally hedge and leave them in because he can use them for killing other things, like even things that Kyle has in his main deck, like Mutavaults, right? Yeah. And maybe even an Aetherling occasionally if it comes down to it.
It's been relevant twice in this top 8, so fair enough.
But those don't hit.
They don't hit the Night Veil Spectre. They also don't hit the Blood Barons.
Right.
If those came in.
And the card that Brad does have that hits Night Veil Spectre quite nicely is one that awkwardly you might not want to leave in, which is Last Breath.
I don't mind Last Breath. I think he does leave the Last Breaths in.
You think so? Just for the Mutavaults?
Yeah. I mean, they definitely kill Mutavaults. They can kill Night Veil Spectres, which, like I said, I know how good they are in this matchup. Brad knows how good they are in this matchup.
So he just has to hedge in that direction.
I think you keep in the Last Breaths. You take out the Doomblades. But then the interesting question is, like, do you need more removal than that? Like, what do you do with your Supreme Verdicts?
That's the big question, right? The verdicts.
It's absolutely the big question.
Yeah.
How many Supreme Verdicts do you want in your list? Are you willing to rely on just Detention Sphere plus 2 Last Breaths? Maybe you are. I mean, Brad's sideboard is loaded for bear in terms of the control fight. He's got 2 Dispels. He's got a Negate. He's got 2 Gainsays. He's got 2 Thought Seizes. He's got 2 Revoke Existences to hit Detention Spheres. He's loaded for bear in terms of fighting the sort of normal Esper on Esper control fight.
Now, if you're in Kyle Boggemes' seat, do you just go really hard in one direction or the other? Are you like, all my creatures are in, and I'm just going to hope that Brad, went one direction and I get him? Or is there a way that you can kind of, like you mentioned, you want the Night Vale Specters kind of regardless here, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's interesting. Oh, yeah, let's take a look at our upcoming webcast schedule here. The Magic Online Championship is next weekend.
That's going to be fun.
That is going to be a sweet one.
That is 3 days, starting on Friday.
Okay.
Right, Friday and Saturday and Sunday. I think we've got 7 rounds each on Friday and Saturday.
And then Sunday's just the top 8.
Top 4.
Excuse me, top 4.
Yeah,
right.
16-person invite only. That looks like a really cool
That
event.
is going to be a cool event. We're going to get to watch Cube Draft.
Cube Draft,
People love
yes.
watching that among other formats. Grand Prix Phoenix is the next
So
weekend.
I want to say one other thing about the mocks that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
We have, because it's being run on Magic Online,
right.
We have the ability to just pull up anybody's monitor.
Yes, we do.
So, like, if the round is still going, we're watching that match.
That's right.
None of this, somebody off in the main event is playing extra turns. Like, it will just be wall-to-wall Magic.
Yes.
So that's going to be fun.
That
I'm looking forward to
next
next
weekend. Big benefit of that system. Grand Prix Phoenix is the next weekend. That's Standard Channel Fireball is going to be covering that one. Grand Prix Nagoya is Theros Born of the Gods Limited. That's April 12th through 13th, as is Grand Prix Philadelphia the same weekend, same format. Going to be bringing you that one as well.
What's
Ben
going
Stark,
on after that, though? There seems to be a Ben Stark doing Philadelphia.
Ben Stark and Media and myself, yep. And there's Grand Prix
break.
Minneapolis.
A weekend without a
wait
premier
a minute.
event?
Wow, weird.
We haven't had one of those since, I
don't know what I'm going to do with
January.
myself. Yeah, it's true. We've been on a heck of a streak here. But GP Minneapolis picks things right back up again on May 10th and 11th. And that same weekend, Grand Prix Warsaw, brought to you by our European coverage team that you watched from Grand Prix Vienna earlier.
Yeah, and then the weekend after Grand Prix Minneapolis, just off the bottom, is the Pro Tour.
Right.
It's Pro Tour Atlanta time. Coming up May 16th it starts.
Awesome. A lot of good stuff coming up. But for now, we're still in the finals here in Cincinnati. Kyle Boggemes able to win, loses an Aetherling fight, but wins an Elspeth fight and finds himself up a game against Brad Nelson here. We have an Esper mirror.
Not a mirror anymore.
And not anymore. That's a good point.
Main deck mirror.
Now things, it could still be. Who knows if they both still go in the control direction.
Well, but I mean, Kyle doesn't have the control weapons in his sideboard. He doesn't have any dispels in his sideboard. He has odd duress. He doesn't have any gainsays. He does have 2 negates, but I mean, he can't win the counter fights the way Brad can. He cannot. He has no access to gainsay or dispel.
All right. Well, it looks like we're going to find out shortly here. Brad Nelson started off with a Temple. Put that card on the bottom. Another a Temple for Kyle, but he's going to keep his. Early game is generally just feeling out, hitting land drops.
Yeah,
Maybe
land drops
there's
are still
Thoughtseize
awesome.
every once in a while.
Right. You're still living in terror of your opponent resolving an Aetherling. You still don't want to give your opponent a window to cast an easy Sphinx's Revelation. So land drops are still very important.
Thoughtseize for Boggemes. Reveals Mutavault. There is a Supreme Verdict right there.
Wow. Kept it in.
Sphinx's Revelation along with Detention Sphere Island.
Yeah, 3 lands is nice. This is a much better hand than Brad had last game.
Sure.
3 lands, a D-Sphere, a Rev. What did he take? Yeah, it takes Sphinx's Revelation. That makes sense. Now he knows about the Supreme Verdict, and he knows about the Detention Sphere.
So we get a chance to see there, though, with Brad. I mean,
yeah. No, he's definitely
he
prepared for a creature fight. Left in some number of Supreme Verdicts. Now, what does Kyle have? If Kyle's got a handful of creatures, this is kind of awkward. But I mean, if Kyle's just got counters and planeswalkers and land, he's in pretty good shape.
I mean, if his hand was full of creatures, doesn't he just take the Verdict there?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you seen what Sphinx's Revelation does?
I have.
Especially against an opponent who's already got 6 land.
It's true.
I mean, access to 6 land.
Another Scryland here for Kyle. He's going to take this one out a little bit. Thinking it over. He's got a lot of information to process now. Knowing a lot about Brad's hand. He's going to put that card on the bottom. And pass a turn back. These Scrylands are just sort of fueling the draws of these players.
part of the power of this list.
Indeed.
You get to run 12 temples.
Mutavault for Kyle.
So both players have one of their 2 Mutavaults.
They do.
Yeah,
Kyle
those
passes
can.
turn.
If one guy is up a Mutavault, that can swing one of these games. Mutavault
We've
can
seen
deal
that.
18, 20 damage.
We've seen it.
But Mutavault parity this game. Still no missed land drops for either player.
Only one spell played this game so far. This is pretty normal, though.
Yep, draw go.
There's a storm brewing on the horizon, though. At some point,
think?
somebody's going to pick a fight over something, and
Yeah, the
hands will
pressure
be
to pick
empty.
the fight normally happens when you run out of land drops, and then you either have to cast a spell or you're going to be forced to discard. But Kyle decides to pick a fight over Sphinx's Revelation for 2.
A fairly conservative one at only
Yeah.
2. I think Brad's like, yeah, sure.
Right. Kyle maybe out of lands, wanted to
Could've
draw a
been.
couple cards. He clearly he had 2 mana left over, so he was definitely telegraphing the ability to fight there.
Right.
Basically
Negate or-
representing a negate.
Okay.
Representing exactly negate. He has no access to gainsay.
Right, here's a Thoughtseize, though, for Kyle.
Yeah.
This could be
Yeah, these are so good.
a harbinger of
You
him
only-
trying to cast something now.
Or even it's just like main phase, he only has to tap 1 mana. It gets either a ton of information and a good card, or gets a counter. Oh, he's going to fight.
He's going to fight over
Here's
this
the negate.
Thoughtseize here. Yes, he
Sure.
is going to negate the dissolve here and really put it to Brad Nelson to decide. And is Brad going
1,
to
2,
fire
3, 4,
Sphinx's
5?
Revelation here? Yeah, for 2.
Jeez.
Ooh, that
Oh,
gets
second
negated as
negate.
well. Well, there was the fight we were talking about a minute ago, and it's going to show Supreme Verdict and Double Detention Sphere.
Yep.
Kyle's going to take one of these as well.
Right.
And it's
Brad
a
Nelson is
sphere.
down to a Detention Sphere and a Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
He does get to untap. He needs to top deck. Top deck something awesome.
He top decks a Thoughtseize. Yeah, so Brad's decision there was, do I just fire off a big Revelation here? And no, I'm going to get in a counter fight and try to get one for later, but it didn't work out for him.
The Sphinx's Revelation would have also gotten negated.
That's why he didn't do it.
Now, Kyle has cleared Brad's hand of everything threatening. There's Aetherling. Yep, Brad can't
And
do
Brad
anything about
can't
this
beat
one.
Aetherling, and Kyle Boggemes is our champion, just like that.
Wow.
Land, and then a flurry of spells.
Pick a fight, run your opponent out of stuff, resolve an Aetherling.
And that's it. That's
yeah,
plan
Brad
A.
Nelson